So we are ready to get started with our resin sea collage. This style is going to be our seascape layout. So first things first, we're going to unwrap everything, sort everything out, and kind of get our area set up. You definitely want to work on a covered surface. You don't want to work on top of your bare table or anything. You want a nice, put a piece of plastic down or some newspaper, something that'll protect the table or the surface that you're working on. Unwrap everything. You have a frame, whether it's the sand finish or the white finish, doesn't matter. We're just going to take that out. Kind of just check everything out here. We have a pair of gloves. We have these 4 cups, and what these 4 cups are going to do, they are going to actually prop up our frame. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And you want to make sure these 4 cups all sit under the glass and not on the frame area. Okay, so set those up. It's best to kind of push them to each corner, but still keeping them on the glass area. Oop. Okay, so that's going to kind of prop it up a little, so we can actually see what we're doing rather than it being flat on the surface. And also, in case any of the resin, drips over or falls under, it won't like glue our frame to our surface. Okay, so we definitely want to prop that up with those 4 cups. We have our resin and our hardener in these bottles, and we have 2 cups. So our resin is labeled with a number 1, and our hardener is labeled with a number 2, as well as our cups. And we'll get to the pouring in a little bit, but you just want to make sure you have a 1 and a 2, resin and a hardener, and then matching cups. We have a big popsicle stick and a couple little ones. Okay, we have a large sand dollar, we have a large starfish, might have a little price tag on the back. You want to take that off. You can kind of take the lids off all of your cups. We have assorted shells here. We have our crushed shells here. We have sand. Then we have our blue crushed shells here. And this little guy here, some sparkle. We actually call that our fairy dust. It's the best finishing touch to all these projects. And then in the bottom you have some of these really fun glass gems, okay? So everything's out, and then here is a little bit of paint, okay? So make sure you have everything, kind of get yourself situated, make sure your area is covered. So you can see that I poured my resin, labeled with number 1, into my cup, labeled with a number 1. And then my hardener, labeled with the 2, into the cup, labeled with the 2. Resin will do nothing without its hardener. If you ever were to go to a store and buy resin, it would always come with hardener. Together, they activate, and it takes 72 hours for the resin to harden and to cure. A lot of times people ask me, what comes first, the resin or the stuff? The way we do it is the resin gets mixed and poured down first, and then we put our stuff on. You don't have to rush. You can kind of move things around. That's why we have these popsicle sticks. The bigger things, like say you stick this somewhere and you're like, oh, I don't like where I put it, if you can take it right out and move it around. So not to stress out at all. All right, so when you do get these poured into the cups, you'll notice there are measurements on there. You want to check them out, and they should be even. If you have to pour a little bit out of one cup or the other just to even them out, that's fine. I gave you a little extra, so if you did have to adjust a little bit, that's okay. All right, so what you're gonna do now is pour cup number 2 into cup number 1. So that's gonna be our hardener into our resin, okay? So, and this is our stirring tool here. So 2 is going to go right into one. Okay, so first I just do a pour. What I'm going to do is take my popsicle stick and scrape that excess out. Don't drive yourself crazy, but definitely try to get out that excess. Okay, so scrapey, scrapey, scrapey. Get this cup out of your way. We're going to use this tool to mix. Now, you want to set a timer for about 3 minutes. What you're going to do is just stir. Nothing fancy here, but what you'll notice when you first start stirring and they first start combining is it's going to look almost silvery and like streaky and cloudy, and that's good in the beginning. That's what's supposed to happen. As you keep mixing, you'll notice it's going to change. Now it's hard to tell you exactly what speed to stir, but I always say don't go too slow, don't go too fast. We're not whipping. It's not a race. A nice steady stir is good. You want to make sure you're getting that stick down in the bottom, not just favoring the top. Every so often, just kind of scrape those edges, scrape the bottom, but just make sure you're stirring for those 3 minutes and not going too fast, not going too slow. Nice medium speed, and you'll see, I hope you can see that it's already starting to change. It's looking a little more clear. Those streaks are gone. That marbly look is kind of gone. It's getting there. You will see bubbles. Don't let bubbles bother you. They'll go away. So when we pour this out onto our frame, the bubbles will go away. So some people end up with a little bit of bubbles. Some people end up with like a real lot of bubbles, and just ignore it. Once it's on here, you don't even notice it because they go away. All right, so I'm going to keep stirring until my timer goes off, and then we'll meet again. Okay, so I have finished mixing, and you'll see there's definitely some bubbles in there. If you stirred really fast, yours might even look almost white from all the bubbles, but that's okay. As long as you don't have that cloudy, marbly look anymore, you're good to go, okay? So ignore the bubbles for now, and I promise they'll go away. Now, what we want to do is get the resin on our frame, and we don't want to wait too long for this. We want to get this out of the cup and onto our frame. And you'll notice in the picture on our website or on your receipt from when you signed up that there's a little tint of color to the resin, and that's optional. If you'd like to keep your entire frame clear, keep the resin clear, you would just go ahead and pour. Or you can tint your entire cup, but my suggestion for this would be about half and half. So I'm going to pour out about half clear, maybe a little more than half, and I'm going to save some in my cup to then add the paint to and tint it. And you definitely want to keep it, since we're adding sand, anywhere you put sand, you want to make sure that the resin under the sand is going to be clear. So if you're kind of doing your own thing, definitely keep that in mind. If you tint your resin blue and then you put sand over it, your sand's going to kind of turn blue. Okay, so this always makes people nervous, but nothing to be scared about. So I'm just going to pour this out about half, or a little more than half. I want my clear to be from like my bottom up, and I want the colored tinted area towards the top half, okay, because my sand will be down on the bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and pour, and you're never going to get exactly half. Don't drive yourself crazy. There's about half, give or take a little. Okay, so I poured that out, and now I'm just going to kind of work it over with my popsicle stick. Definitely still using that big one. Okay, I want to get it on all those edges. Okay, so I'm just taking this stick and pushing it over, smushing it over. See these streaky lines I'm creating? Don't let them bother you. They'll just kind of settle themselves out, right? It's just important to get the resin in all of these corners and edges, okay? Okay, and however it kind of lands up here, I would just leave it. All right, and now we have some resin left in our cup. I'm gonna pop open my paint. This is not a lot of paint, but this is actually way more than you're gonna need, okay? So I'm gonna use my little stick and just scoop a little bit right into my cup, okay? And I wanna mix, 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 mix. Okay, stir that in. And you'll notice, I barely used any, okay? Just one little scoop. And from that amount of paint, you're gonna see how this pours and looks on my finished piece. So if you wanna add more, you'll kind of have an idea of like what one scoop looks like, all right? So make sure you really mix that in. Just gonna scrape my stick off, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pour the rest. And I'm not gonna worry about, you know, if the clear and the colored resin mix, because they're gonna, okay? Right, and then I'm going to just scrape that excess out. And see how nice and colorful that resin is just from that little amount of paint. So you really don't need a lot. So doing the same thing here, I am just scooping it around, getting it over to those sides, ignoring those streaky lines. Now if you want to kind of mix the clear and the teal together to kind of just, you know, make them one or lighten up that teal a little bit. Make it more of like a see-through kind of look, like a sea glassy teal. All right. So play around with that. Remember, keeping the bottom all clear, not going to bring any of that teal down to the bottom because I want to put sand there and I don't want it to pick up the color. Okay, so all right, now it has met all of my edges. I'm just going to put this to the side. At this point, I take my gloves off. Totally up to you if you want to keep them on. Okay, so now it's time to start laying our stuff on, which is the fun part. And remember I said before, you really don't have to rush. You'll notice after your resin's been on your frame for some time, it does start thickening up a little bit. I feel like no one ever works more than like 30-40 minutes. I mean, really it could take you 10 minutes. It really depends on you and how you work and your style and everything. So, you know, don't rush, and remember you can remove things. You can kind of switch them around, and if you need to push things around, you can use these popsicle sticks to kind of push, you know, move things around. So I always like to start with my sand, and you see we still have this nice clear area here at the bottom. So you can just kind of shake it out like this. Sometimes people say they get like a liney pattern when you're shaking it out like this. So if you notice that and it's bothering you, just grab it with your fingers and sprinkle. Either way works. All right, so no two projects are ever the same, no matter what. You know, I'm showing you the seascape similar to the one on our website, but it's impossible to match it. Yours will be different than mine. Mine will be different than the example. And I think it's really fun to kind of make it your own anyway. Okay, so I'm just kind of sprinkling some sand. couple things you want to keep in mind while you're working. You know, you might not realize right away, but if you notice like all your resin's kind of moving to one side, maybe check your cups out, make sure they're all still under the glass and one didn't like end up under the frame, or maybe your table, your work area is a little crooked, so you can adjust. You know, you want to make sure it's nice and level. Okay, so there's my sand. You could put more or less than that if you'd like. Now I'm gonna just start putting in some of my crushed shell, wherever you'd like. And it's really just a collage. So whatever makes you happy. And you know, less really sometimes is more. I know you've heard that before. Try not to overdo it. All right. You'll notice I still have about half of my sand left in here. You don't need all that sand, but if you wanted like a bigger sand area, that's fine. But you don't want to like put too much sand so that you can't put anything on top of it. You still, you know, if I wanted to put some shell on top of my sand, I want it to be able to still catch some resin. Okay, so a little bit of shell. Then we have this fun blue crushed shell. You put a little bit of that here and there. I go back and forth a little bit. Don't feel like you need to use everything you were given, because you were probably given way too much. It's not necessary to use it all. So, and then I have this cup of mixed shells. So I'll kind of mix those into the bottom area. See how that one landed like that? I can totally just flip that over. It's not stuck in place. Maybe do a little cluster down here. Maybe some of my shells ended up here. All right. I might want to go back and fill in a little bit of sand. Depends on how it kind of laid out. Get back into those blue guys a little bit. Okay, and then I have these glass gems, and you can do whatever you want with those. You can kind of make like a bubble, maybe like a bubble line, just some random pops of, you know, something different, something shiny. Maybe something in the corner. Whatever you want to do with these. I just feel like you can't go wrong. They just really come out beautiful, and all this stuff is just perfect. All right, and then I always save my big stuff for last because it's a big decision, you know? Where am I gonna put it? And you can follow exactly where I put it on my example on your receipt, or you can switch it up. Let's see. I think I'll keep this up top here. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of wedge this down here, and if I have a lot of stuff in my way, I am just gonna wedge it. And you don't have to worry about, you know, if every part of the starfish is touching the resin, just as long as part of it is. It's so lightweight and the resin is so strong, it's gonna hold it. Okay, so my sand dollar's up here. I got my starfish down here. And then I have my finishing touch, which is our sparkle. I would not pour this directly on. And this is optional. Some people don't love it, but I love it. I like to just sprinkle a little bit of sparkle on there. It just kind of adds a little bit of happiness, whatever you want to call it. Probably like 1 or 2 sprinkles is perfect, but I just can't stop when it comes to sparkles. All right. And voila, there's my masterpiece. Now what I'm gonna do, and you should too, in the end, once you're done, once you're happy with your finished piece, grab a baby wipe, or if you don't have babies at home or baby wipes, grab just a wet paper towel and wipe down that frame. And by the time you're done working, you'll notice the resin has thickened up a little bit. Not, you know, nothing crazy, but definitely a little bit. And you could tell just by like moving your frame around like that. Okay, so make sure you just clean up that edge. And then what you're gonna do, find a really safe spot for this. It has to sit flat, just like this, for the next 72 hours. So that's at least 3 days. And the preferred temperature for the curing is about 72 degrees. Maybe our houses are not that warm. So if you're putting it in like a cooler place, I would just give it an extra day or 2. You'll notice by tomorrow it will be, you know, everything will be in place. It'll be still very sticky. You do want to try and cover this too while it's curing. I happen to have this big Tupperware bin that I would just place right over this and protect it, okay? If you don't have something like this, you can use, like, you could take 4 cups and 1, 2, 3, 4 and put a baking pan right over it. You can also put it in your oven if you trust your family enough to use the oven, but I don't know, everybody's home these days, so maybe not a great idea. The point is you just want to find a really nice safe spot to keep this where no one's going to get to it, no kids, no pets, and try and keep it in a warmer area. And if you don't have a really, you know, ideal temperature for the curing, just leave it to cure an extra day or so. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have fun with it, and please share it to our Facebook page so we can see your end results. All right, thank you.